The Blue Jewel.
Chapter 7. Part 5. This time the watch shift was double. Aris thought that any precaution was too little. As always, they made a fire and prepared the grass for dinner. Arian was still thinking about the Iron Wars. I don't understand why they made war. Agnorak smiled. For the same thing as all of them, gold. But Olbianer doesn't seem very interested in the territories he won in the Iron Wars. Kush smiled before answering. It wasn't what I wanted, it was the mines of Demember. By the end of the war his kingdom was ruined in spite of the victory and however great the booty obtained. Ordinary people hated this war despite the victory. So when the crown asked for settlers to repopulate New Olbianer, they didn't get many volunteers. The inhabitants of Olbianer considered it to be a cursed place, inhabited only by those banished by convictions or people who are not originally from Olbianer and have no better place to go. In addition, trade with the rest of the Dragon Ridge realms with New Olbianer does not exist. It is doomed to be a dead zone where nature is now reborn. War is a waste. Agnorak drank some wine. Arian saw the blue moon rise over the White River. You are mercenaries, you make your living from war. That's why we know that war is just a trade. Kingdoms rise up against each other for whatever reason, but in the end it's the third that wins and everyone else loses. Everyone nodded to Agnorak's words, they had blank stares remembering the past. But you're still mercenaries. You know that war is bad, you continue to kill. Why? Silence fell over everyone, they lowered their heads. No one knew what to say. Agnorak got up to perform the first shift of duty next to Gosberg and added only one more sentence. It's the only thing we know how to do well. The following days became heavy despite the fact that villages and towns sprang up from every corner. It was a fertile land and here the settlers had occupied the province fleeing from the overpopulated south. The looks they received were not friendly. In the north indifference or curiosity was the tendency but not here. Any traveler from the north was treated with great suspicion despite the fact that the war had ended a long time ago. A new war would end with the prosperity achieved in recent times. They camped next to the great bridge of King Nuemir II, built by this great king 400 years ago on the remains of the old bridge destroyed after a great flood of the Rio Blanco. Now that they were approaching Tripulia, the morale of the group improved a little. The one who did the most to raise the mood was the Denkter, who was always told some strange story by the light of the bonfire accompanied by a bottle of wine. Of all the ones that Arian told, always remembered that night. It all started with Kush talking to the young woman about the magic orders. Magic orders arose at the beginning of this era. After the punishment, the cursed advanced through the world like poison, transmitting their infection. Luckily, a group of wizards came together to create a magical war like the one the gods did in the first era after Elmerd's betrayal. With great sacrifices they managed to perform the ritual and the curse was contained. To prevent the ancient knowledge from being lost, the magicians decided to create a magic order where the ancient scrolls could be kept and to be able to instruct new magicians to be prepared for another new crisis. Those magicians decided to wear a white robe and thus the Order of the White Robes was created. The king of Olbianer, which was already an important kingdom at the time, gave the order an ancient tower in which a powerful wizard had dwelt. The tower was located in the city of Tripulia. Over time the call effect made many mags go there to be instructed, but to belong to the order the requirements were very strict and with a maximum demand and many were rejected. These were taken in by other mags and other orders were created that built their own towers. In order to have control over the activities of the orders of magicians, the Council of Orders of Magicians was created. What does the council do? Mediate between the different orders if there are conflicts, make sure that the mags do not cast forbidden spells. Forbidden spells. Necromancy is prohibited. Revive the dead. It's more complex than that. Using the dead or sacrificing them to gain power is forbidden by Thani, the goddess of death. And magicians are careful not to anger her. Thani, the goddess of death, In Caesarea her cult was abandoned like all gods since the punishment, yet some people prayed for the dead and their good rest. She is said to be vengeful to those who refuse to escape her clutches, but these are just legends. Necromancy is punishable by death in honor of Thani. Still, some magicians can't resist death magic because the power it gives is enormous. As the necromancer Aldomir. Kush was surprised to see that Arion knew that name. The necromancer Aldomir was never caught by the Council of Wizards. Gosberg sat down next to Arion, pushed the grass bowl aside, and drank some wine. That dam one day will pay for his crimes. Him and his accursed disciples. Arion showed a look of surprise and Gosberg saw that the young woman wanted to know more. Aldomir, before taking refuge in his ice palace, had another fortress. There came those who wanted to learn the dark arts. Many of them became victims of the necromancer, but a few were worthy students of the necromancer, although one of them was especially mediocre in the art of reviving the dead, so much so that Aldomir himself tried to assassinate him, but the young man survived and discovered that he had a special talent for resurrecting corpses of dead vegetables. Dead vegetables? Yes, his name was Azibuin Nosha. They called him the King of Onions. Arion spat out the grass with laughter. I don't believe it. Which is true, the accursed one recovered from the assassination attempt on Aldomir and managed to obtain great power. He was able to corrupt dead vegetables and transform them into horrible creatures. He had a special gift with onions. Laughter from everyone, that was sovereign stupidity. Until Agnorok, who was the only one who wasn't laughing, approached Gosberg. The War of the Killer Onions. Yes, that's what they called it in some places. Aris regained his composure. It was not believed that Agnorok would play along with Denka. But what do you say, Agnorok? Gosberg doesn't lie, it really happened, although I didn't know that the cause had been a necromancer. It happened when I was little. Where I lived I was attacked by an army of murderous onions. It was not a joke, and also while standing guard one night a night assailant kicked my ass. And what happened? In an attack the onions stopped walking and stayed there until they rotted. Gosberg got up. And it was thanks to me. Azibuin Nosha wanted to dominate the world with his creations and take revenge on his master. But I and some associates put an end to him and his evil plan. Everyone stared at Gosberg. He had saved the world from an invasion of living dead onions. And Aldomir? That old is rotting in his fortress waiting for me to come back. The Denka finished the contents of the bottle and together with Agnorok began the first shift of guard. They had continued to work double shifts since they had entered Olbiana.